You know these hadiths that talk about whether or not there's more women in hellfire than men? Do you know that actually in the chapter of Sahih Muslim that deals with this issue, the first report in that chapter is an opinion of Abu Huraira. It's not a prophetic hadith, it is an opinion of Abu Huraira. And a group of Muslims in Medina, this is after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, a group of Muslims in Medina are debating whether or not there's more women or men in heaven. And Abu Huraira says, they come to him and they ask him what his opinion is. And he thinks and he says, there's more women in heaven. Why? Because the Prophet said that this group of people who enter heaven, each man will have 2 wives. Therefore, there's more women than men in heaven. Right? And then you see, wait, but there's other hadiths where the Prophet says, ﷺ, says that the women are the smallest number of people in heaven. Men are the greater number. And this is very interesting. What does a great scholar like Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who's a famous, probably the most famous kind of medieval hadith scholar, he's from Cairo, he died in 1449. He says, this person narrating this hadith probably made a mistake, because this person thinks that if there is more women in hell, there have to be less women in heaven. Whereas if women are the majority of mankind, Ibn Hajar says, if women are the majority of mankind, then even if you have exactly half of all men going to hell and exactly half of all men going to heaven and exactly half of all women going to hell and exactly half of all women going to heaven, you still have more women in both heaven and hell. And so he says, this is my explanation for these hadiths. He's very flexible. And in fact, Muslim scholars were always very flexible when they were dealing with these issues, because they knew they were dealing with the realm of the unseen, the afterlife, which none of us can ever possibly understand. That's why they would always use the famous saying of the companion Ibn Abbas, لَيْسَ فِي الدُّنْيَا مِمَّا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا الْأَسْمَاءِ. There's nothing in this world that's in the next world except names. The only thing we know in common is names. We can't possibly understand the details or the exact nature of the afterlife. But why is this important? Because this is the kind of things that Muslims become obsessed with when they find these hadiths. Oh, the Prophet, this is a misogynist hadith, this is a sexist hadith. No, it's not. Because the very people, not only the companions of the Prophet, but generations and generations of Muslim scholars after them, never thought this was saying that actually there are more women in hellfire than men. They never interpreted like that. As I said, most of them actually believe that there are more women in heaven than men. What were they interested in? They were interested in the wisdom that the second part of all these hadiths, no one ever talks about the second parts of the hadiths, right, where the Prophet says to the women he's talking to, he's trying to give them lessons to help them improve their lives. So he says, تُكْثِرْنَا اللَّعْنَ وَتُكْفِرْنَا الْعَشِيرَ. You're women, you're cursing a lot, and you're being ungrateful to your husbands. And he continues and he says, what is ungrateful? It means your husband is always good to you, but then one day he doesn't do something good for you, and you say to him, I've never seen anything good from you. And this is a very interesting phrase. I think maybe people in the room have heard the phrase before, right? It's possible. It's very good advice the Prophet is giving these women. He's saying, be grateful when you have a good husband. And then in other hadiths, he gives advice to men. And yet we still are obsessed with our own, because of the worldview from which we come, we're obsessed with reading these hadiths through this kind of what sometimes people call a hermeneutic of suspicion.